They assigned me to the East Wing that night, the quieter hall, with mostly long-term palliative cases. I've worked hospice over 2 decades, and that wing, with its soft green walls and dimmed lights, always felt like a place where time stood still. Families came and went. Some rooms held laughter even in the end. Some, silence. But room 17 was different. I was charting at the nurse's station around 2:45 a.m. when the newer nurse, Shalini, came back from rounds. She looked pale, more than tired, unsettled. I asked if she was all right, and she avoided my eyes for a second before she said, "I don't want to go back into room 17 alone." I looked at her carefully, patient, agitated. I asked. She shook her head. No, it's quiet in there. Too quiet. But it feels like something's watching me. Now I don't jump to conclusions. I've heard nurses say things like that, usually when they're stressed or overwhelmed. But there was something in her voice that caught me off guard. A tremble, like she was struggling to explain something she didn't even believe herself. I walked with her down the hall. Room 17 had been occupied by Mr. Vijay for about 3 weeks. He was a retired professor, throat cancer, stage 4. By the time he came to us, speech was gone. He communicated through blinking and slow hand movements. No family, no visitors. He was a man of routine, always woke at 6, always looked out the window before sleeping. But that night, when I opened the door, it was like stepping into thick stillness. Not cold, not scary, just heavy. Mr. Vijay lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I stepped in, checked his vitals, adjusted his blanket. He didn't blink, not once. But he was breathing slow and steady. Shalini stood just outside, peering in. I finished up and stepped out. "See," she whispered. "It feels like someone else is in there." I didn't dismiss her. Not because I believed her yet, but because I knew better than to shrug off a nurse's gut. Over the next few nights, more little things added up. The call light in 17 would go off, and when we got there, Mr. Vijay would be asleep, deep asleep, and the remote would be untouched. Once I found his oxygen tube gently coiled at the foot of the bed. He couldn't have done that himself. His hands were too weak. Another nurse, Martha, swore she saw the curtain move, as if someone had passed behind it. No window open, no draft. We checked the vents, still we kept doing our jobs. No one made a fuss. We're trained to be steady, but every one of us started avoiding room 17, unless we were paired up, even the aides. The night before Mr. Vijay passed, I sat with him for a while. He looked straight at me, and for the first time in days, he lifted one hand and pointed slowly, not at me, but at the corner of the room, to the left of the window. I turned, nothing there, just the chair and the IV pole. I looked back at him. He didn't seem afraid, just tired, very tired. That morning, at shift change, I told the day nurse he'd likely go soon, and he did, peacefully, mid-morning. No one was with him. We cleaned the room, reset it. A few days later, a new patient was brought in, younger woman, end-stage ALS. Her sister stayed every night with her. 3 days in, the sister pulled me aside. She asked, softly, "Was this room always this dark?" I looked around. The lights were fine, the blinds open, but I knew what she meant. I just nodded. Sometimes I wonder if Mr. Vijay wasn't alone in there toward the end. Not in a frightening way, but in the way people say loved ones come to guide them. Maybe something watched because it was waiting. Maybe Shalini felt it before any of us did. Whatever it was, it left when he did. The room's different now. Still quiet, still heavy sometimes, but not watched, not anymore. Hello friends, thank you so much for tuning in. A special shout out to our incredible subscribers. Your support keeps these chilling stories alive. But here's something to consider. Only 30% of our viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy our content, hitting that subscribe button helps us more than you might realize. It only takes a second, but makes a world of difference. And while you're at it, a like and share go a long way in keeping the eerie tales coming. Thank you once again for being part of this journey. You're the reason we're here. See you in the next one, if you dare. They called her Mrs. Rani, 76, thin as paper, sharp as glass. A quiet woman who mostly kept to herself, except when she spoke. And when she did, you listened. There was something about the way she said things, like she was remembering them, not predicting them. I first noticed something strange on a Tuesday evening. I had just finished evening rounds, checking meds, fluffing pillows, making sure everyone was comfortable. As I walked past her room, she was sitting up in bed, eyes not on me, but on the window, not through it, at it. I asked if she needed anything. She didn't turn, didn't blink. "Mr. Collins," she said. "He's going to take the train soon." Mr. Collins was in room 4. Sweet man, prostate cancer, stage IV, quiet suffering. We thought he had more time, weeks at least. He died that night, peacefully, no distress, just gone. I chalked it up to coincidence, but then, 2 nights later, I found her awake again. Her fingers were clasped over the blanket, and her eyes were glassy but focused. She looked at me like she was waiting. "Miss Cheryl's waiting at the platform," she whispered. "She sees her mother." Cheryl was 58, liver failure. Her decline had been slow but stable. There were no signs she was close. None. By morning, Cheryl was unresponsive. She passed before lunch. That's when I started listening more closely. Mrs. Rainey never claimed to predict anything. She'd just sit and murmur things like, "He's wearing shoes, shiny ones. They only shine when they're going somewhere. She's holding someone's hand, but it's not anyone here." I started writing it down, every time. The names, the phrases, the times, and like clockwork, within 12 to 24 hours, another patient would pass. I asked her once, softly, what she meant when she said the platform. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "When they're ready, they wait for the train. It doesn't come from here. It comes from there." She pointed behind me, not at anything, just behind. Some of them know they're waiting, some don't. I felt cold, but not the kind of cold from a draft. The kind of cold that sits behind your ribs, the kind that stays. She wasn't trying to scare anyone. She didn't tell the patients themselves, just me, or sometimes the wall, sometimes no one, and she never got it wrong. Then one day, I walked in and she was crying, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. "Who is it?" I asked her. She shook her head. "It's no one yet." But I saw my own shoes. That was the only time she ever referred to herself. That was the only time I saw fear in her. She died 3 days later. She was smiling. I don't know what she saw. I'll never know. After she passed, the predictions stopped. No one else has seen the journey. Not in that way. Not since. But sometimes, in the quiet, in those long night shifts when the halls hum low and all the doors are closed, I find myself listening for her voice. And every now and then, when a patient's breathing changes, or they start looking past me when I speak, I wonder, are they seeing their shoes? Are they already at the platform? Or is someone, somewhere, watching their journey begin? That's what haunts me, not the dying, the knowing. Hospice teaches you a lot about silence. The kind that settles in a room before a final breath, or the kind that follows grief into the hallway after the family leaves. But there's another kind, the silence that feels like it's watching. That's the one I learned about from a patient named Jerome. He was in his early 60s, lung cancer, retired math teacher, didn't talk much, kept to himself, liked the window open, even when it was cold, said he liked to feel the world moving. I remember thinking that was poetic for a man who barely spoke. He had no family, no visitors, just me, a few aides, and the occasional chaplain who tried to pray with him. He never let them. We put him in room 9. It's a corner room. Warm light during the day, quiet at night. I liked that room, until Jerome. It started with small things. An aide mentioned his shadow looked off. I thought she was tired. Night shifts will do that. Then another nurse said the same, said when she walked in, Jerome's shadow was already on the wall, like it had been waiting for her. I didn't know what she meant, not really, but I didn't ask. I just nodded. Then I saw it for myself. It was a little after 2 a.m. I was doing my rounds. Jerome was asleep, or at least, his body was still. I paused at his doorway. The room was dim, the way he liked it. Just the soft light from the hall bleeding in through the crack in the door. That's when I saw it. His shadow was on the far wall, not cast by the light, not following the shape of his body. It was stretched long, unnaturally long, thin limbs, distorted torso, the head tilted too far to the side, and it moved. I stood there, frozen. It moved before he did, shifted slightly, like it was listening, watching me. I blinked, stepped inside, and the shadow twitched, not with the rhythm of his breath, not with the pull of the light, but like it had noticed me noticing. Then Jerome opened his eyes. He looked right at me and said, "It's been here before." I asked him what he meant. He just looked back at the wall and whispered, "It waits until they're hollow." I stayed with him longer that night, pulled up a chair. He didn't say much else, but he kept glancing at the shadow. It never lined up with his body, always slightly delayed, like it was deciding whether to follow. Over the next few nights, other staff started avoiding room 9. They wouldn't say why. One CNA asked to be reassigned completely, said it felt like someone else was breathing behind her every time she walked in. 3 nights before he passed, Jerome finally spoke to me again. He said, "It's not death, it's something that comes for what's left." I asked if he was afraid. He shook his head. "Not afraid, just tired of being watched." He died alone, just past midnight. I was down the hall. When I walked into room 9, the light was low, the air too still. Jerome was pale, and still, and his eyes already closed. But his shadow, it remained on the wall, for maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10, it lingered. No light could have made it that way, no angle matched. It stretched, as if reluctant, then it peeled slowly down, inch by inch, like it was detaching from the wall itself, and vanished. We closed room 9 for a few weeks, said it needed deep cleaning. No one asked questions. Now and then I get assigned to that room again. It's just a room, but sometimes I sit quietly in the chair where I waited with Jerome. I don't look at the wall, and I never trust a shadow that moves first. Hospice is a place where words matter. The last ones especially. I've heard everything from "tell her I love her" to "am I late for the train." Sometimes there's no sound at all, just silence and breath. But once I heard a goodbye that didn't belong. It was a patient named Mrs. Alvarez, 81, heart failure. She'd been with us a few weeks. Always polite, soft-spoken. The kind of woman who said thank you even when you were just fluffing her pillow. No kids, no visitors, except a niece who came once or twice with flowers she couldn't afford. She didn't talk much toward the end. The decline came fast. Her body just seemed to surrender, but her eyes were always open, always aware. That last night I was with her, I was charting in the hallway. It was quiet, one of those rare nights where everything felt still. No call buttons, no alarms, just the hum of machines and the soft creak of the building settling. And then I heard it, a whisper, clear as if someone was right next to me. It came from her room. Goodbye. Not loud, not desperate, just final. But the thing is, it wasn't her voice. Mrs. Alvarez had a high, trembling voice. Years of illness had worn it down to a breathy whisper. What I heard was low, calm, male. I went in immediately. She was lying on her back, mouth slightly open, eyes half-lidded. She hadn't moved. No one else was there. I checked her pulse. Nothing. She'd passed. I stayed there for a while, not writing, not moving, just sitting, trying to make sense of it. And then I noticed something else. Her face looked peaceful. Yes, but not just relaxed. It looked like someone who had been spoken for, like someone who didn't have to say the last word, because someone else had already said it on their behalf. I told myself it was the monitor, the air vent, my own exhaustion playing tricks. You come up with explanations. You have to. But then a few weeks later, I was talking to her niece. She had come by to collect the last of her aunt's things. We chatted a bit. She told me about Mrs. Alvarez's late husband Tomas, how quiet he'd been, gentle, how they used to sit on their porch at night and never say much, just a soft goodbye before bed, every single night. For over 40 years, she said that was his thing. He'd whisper it right before turning off the light. I asked what his voice sounded like. She paused, low, calm, like it knew you'd hear it, even if you were already falling asleep. I didn't say anything, just nodded, handed her the envelope with her aunt's belongings. Some people believe the soul lingers, others think it travels. Me? I think sometimes someone comes back to walk you to the edge, just to say what you can't. Not loud, not desperate, just goodbye. And maybe, in that moment, it's not about who hears it, it's about who needs to. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means everything and keeps these stories alive. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below, give it a like, and share it with someone who loves a good eerie tale. Thanks again for being here. You make all of this possible.